Here we are in the second week of the birthday event, and I hope that you're all thoroughly enjoying it. As you can see, I happily have my Epic 2 back in my embroidery studio, which is lovely. Although I do love my other Epic, it's working the other side and not near my threads and everything is all a bit complicated, but I'm a lot more at ease now. I hope you're enjoying these tutorials. I've quite enjoyed the challenge of actually looking at each design and thinking, now what can I do with this design? And today I have a design that I created specially to be used to create embroidered fabric. Now, I've got several designs on the website that do this, and the thing about a design that is for embroidered fabric, it's like a jigsaw piece, except that it's designed in such a way that it'll sit above itself and below itself, and also to each side, so you can multiply it rows and rows and rows. And I mean, you obviously wouldn't do an embroidery for, you know, something large item, but the first time I ever did embroidered fabric, I made a bodice out of the Dainty Vines designs, and for the bodice of a little dress for my granddaughter. It's also great for collars and cuffs and bags and panels and lots of things. But I love embroidered fabric, and there's so very little out there on the market now. There was a time when there was lots to choose from. I remember the great big John Lewis in Oxford Street in London, where I actually went to buy the fabric for my wedding. The whole of the ground floor was all fabric, but those days are over, and perhaps it's a good thing, because too much lovely fabric is just irresistible. But there are times when it's nice to create a panel or something to contrast within your project or clothes. It's excellent. It just gives a little bit of variety. And of course, you can use the same fabric, you can choose your colours, you can choose your designs. So it's quite exciting to do. And at Graceful Embroidery, Dainty Vines has a fabric block, Katie Grace has a fabric block, and so do Graceful Oak Leaves. There's a fabric block in the Heart's Ease collection. Oh, and now the brain cells are having to work really hard. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to stitch it out and show you each of the sections. I will just show you how I load it up in my software. I mean, obviously it can be done on your machine too, and then I will stitch it out and just show you the end result. I'm going to take this design, which is day 11. I'm sorry these videos have got a little bit behind, but we're getting there. And as you can see, we're looking at this in my Welcome Embroidery Suite software, and I'm showing you this because it is an easy way of showing how this design works. Now, I've opened it up, and I really don't need the outline alignment stitches, so I'm going to remove those. Now, theoretically, I should put them in a new file, but I'm going to be naughty. So in this software, I'm going to select the whole design, and I'm going to drag it alongside itself, and I'm using the cross hatch lines here to make sure that they match. Okay, and then I'm going to grab them again, but I'm also going to enable the grid. I don't like working with the grid, but when it's on, it does make alignment a lot easier. So I'm going to pull this down and repeat it again. Now I can put it here, matching it up there, and we get a sort of a diamond shape embroidery. And if we just grab those ones, you get the picture. That needs to be nudged over a little bit. And the important thing to remember is you've got to look between these 2 points and make sure they're the same. They're a little bit further apart. I'm going to take the grid off and I'm actually going to skewer it just so that you can get another look of how it would be. Okay, right, I'm going to go back. So that is one of the options for using this design, a very simple version of it, but there is also another way we can use it. Well, there are many ways, but I'm not going to get too complicated. Make sure it fits nicely on that line, and I'm going to take it again. Now there is a I've done that manually, but I can also do this in the software. So we select it, and up here we select array, and we select 1 row but 3 versions of the design, and then you've just got to put them as you think, and then that's the perfect way of selecting them. Now I'm going to grab those 3, and instead of putting them down below themselves here, which is a tiny bit boring, I'm going to go in and move them up into this blank area. As you can see, that creates a very different picture. So let's select the whole lot, and there we are. Now we've really created embroidery fabric. And I could have done that using the array. But the important thing to remember is that you need to look at how the designs are sitting against each other. And I've done this simply, but there is no reason why, if you thought, well, every time you have these 2 blossoms, there's a gap there. And you could select something else and put it in, and then put it in the other places, so you can fill in the gaps. But I just want to show you the basic principle of a design which can be used for embroidered fabric, and the possibilities. So we'll remove that stitch, and we're going to remove the last duplication. Now if I look at this selection of designs, they actually, down here it says it's 265. I've actually got the millimeters selected here, but Wilcom allows you to quickly change over to inches, and as you can see it is nearly 4.5 inches, which is no good for my 9.5 inch hoop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the click here on the star, and I'm going to remove this one here, delete it. Now if we select it, it happily sits within the 180. Oh dear, what am I doing? It sits between the 9.5 and 6 inch hoop, or the 240 by 150, and I'm going to change that back to metric. Okay, now normally I would I'd rotate it so it's upright, which is the way it stitches out in the hoop, and I would save it as a VP3 file and open it up in my Husqvarna software and colour sort it, because every software package has its limitations. Anyway,
enough of that. If I go down that road, we get carried away utterly. So there is our design. I'm not going to show you the stitch out, but I'm going to show you the results and discuss those with you. Hope you found that useful.
Here is my stitch out, and as you can see, I decided to use some fabric that matches some of the colours within this design. I went for this mauve. It's a shiny satin silk dupion as opposed to a slubby one, so it's a little bit less forgiving, but I think you'll agree that the results are quite good. It's stitched out very nicely, except that somewhere the gremlins have added an extra flower there, so we'll pretend that one's not there. I don't expect you to notice if I hadn't pointed it out. I didn't use all the same colours. I used for these flowers, instead of the white, the off-white, I used a very pale putty, which almost looks grey on here. And I got my colour wheel out. I don't use a colour wheel very often, but I decided to select this fabric here and look across and see what the opposite was. And the apricot was not quite there, so what I decided to do is to do the leaves, do these blossoms in 1838, which has turned out very nicely, because I felt the apricot would have shouted too much on this fabric. And finally, for the centres of the flowers, I decided to go for a darker gold, which is Sulky Rayon 1819, because very small sections of your embroidery, if you want them to show, need to be in darker colours. So the principle being that these French knots here are in a darker colour, it tends to work. So I hope you like that, and you'll notice that it's very pretty. I'm really pleased with that, and obviously if it was done on an angle, you'd get a slightly different look. So that's what you can do with design number 11. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and it would be nice if you left a comment. Tell me what you think of this colour scheme, or what colours you would adopt. What colour fabric would you stitch this out on, and what would you make embroidered fabric for? Do subscribe to the channel, that would be great if you could, and hit the like button, and then you'll get then you will spread the word about Graceful Embroidery. If you come across this video and you think, oh, how can I get hold of these designs? They are free to all members of the Graceful Group Forum. You can join up until October the 10th, and after that I'm afraid it will close for a few weeks. But later on in October, November, these designs will be available for sale. They don't have a name as yet, so that's something else you could do. Send me your suggestions for the name of this collection of designs. There will be 4 or 5 sets in the collection altogether. So I hope you found this little video helpful, inspirational, and until next time, thank you for watching and happy hooping.